Welcome to another week, another show of Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. There they are, Craig and Stacy Schroeder, Fight with Flash Foundation via Facebook or fightwithflash.org. Not glossing over Craig just yet. Here's our pick'em star. Stacy came close. I love the fact. Obviously, she picked 22, Flash's number, and he was born on the 13th, so that's why she picked the 22-13 score of the Hawkeyes beating South Dakota State last week. Yeah. What a sage you were. Craig and I were going to go way over the moon, 42-10, 35-10. So, Craig, as always, we look better by hanging around Stacy, don't we?
Absolutely. Another reason why I don't gamble.
Ding, ding, ding. Wise move, Craig. Now let's do this, Craig. Let's you and I talk. Well, again, as always, thanks for joining us. And guys, looking great as always. You traveled a whirlwind trip down to Florida and back this week. So I would like Craig to first start off talking about, and so Stace, you sit and stew there for a little bit and think of your pick. Get your Swami hat out. So Craig, let's talk golf tourney. We are, as this airs on the weekend of Friday, the weekend of the 10th and the 11th, so on Friday the 9th and Saturday the 10th and the 11th online. We record this on Tuesday, September 6th. Craig, we're talking, by the time this airs, less than 2 weeks to your golf tourney on the 23rd. Talk about it. What do we got going on? Let's give us an update, please.
Yeah, we're just trying to finish all the auction items, put everything together, work on the marketing materials. We're working on the patient stories, so we always put a brochure together and tell as many patient stories as we possibly can and give that to all the golfers. And then the hospital actually uses that and they hand that out to other patients during the year. And let them know that we are an organization out there to help them with a diagnosis, help them through the journey. And then also as a reminder to parents, if there's an unfortunate loss of a child, we're always here to help as a parent that has gone through this to know. And
you two do a wonderful job with that and have continued to over the 7.5 years since Flash's passing. So Stacy, as always, and thank you for that, Craig, as always, we know to go online, either fightwithflash.org or facebook.com/fightwithflash Foundation for the wonderful jewelry and all the gear that you can get. Yes, Flash gear. Stadium blankets, when you brought that up a couple weeks ago, we're starting to see as the fall starts entering, we're going to need those at some point in time. All right, Stacy, that's all good stuff, but let's get to the important stuff. Iowa State at Iowa Kinnick Stadium this weekend, 3 o'clock kick on Big Ten Network. I'm buying you some time. Give us your pick, Swami one.
Okay, well, this time I know the Hawks they're going to rev it on up, and it's going to be 35-22 Hawks.
I love it. There's the 22 again. So Stacy says she's taking the over 35-22. Craig, are we living with this?
I was way off last week, so yes.
Same here. This is why truly I'm having Stacy do this, because Craig and I, we do too much with our head and our heart thinking, well, we know this, this, and this. Stacy knows enough. She knows what she knows. 35-22, book it. Hawkeye's victory over Iowa State. You two, as always, what a shot in the arm. Great to see you both again. We'll do it all again next week.
Sounds great.
Thank you very much. You're very welcome. Thanks to Craig and Stacy Schroeder, Fight with Flash Foundation. I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. We'll be back with former Hawkeye quarterback James Vandenberg for 2 segments, and then we'll close out the show with 24/7 Sports and Hawkeye insider David Eickholt. Back with more Hawkeye in just a few moments. Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. As you can see, our buddy James Vandenberg joining us, former Hawkeye quarterback, doing very well in the financial field with Corridor Investment Group. James, great to see you in person. How you doing?
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Truly my pleasure. After 5 years, viewers, James and I finally together in person after radio, TV on Zoom. We plowed through the pandemic, James, and here we are today. Everything going well with you?
Everything's going good. Yeah, I felt like I've known you this whole time. I mean, but I haven't technically until
true.
Right now.
Everybody who has said that to me on the air is like, hey, you and James get along so well and this and that. And I'm like, I've never met the man in person. So after all this time, radio and TV, it was clandestine. It was meant to be. So here we go, folks. James, let's get right to it. Last week, 7-3 punt fest. I'll be kind and call it a punt fest.
We should have taken the under.
As you just heard the segment before, Stacy Schroeder did that. Picked the Hawks to win 22-13, and we thought, what is she picking? But she's our picker every week. Craig and I, with Fight with Flash Foundation, have decided we're going to ride with Stacy. Who knew how right she would be? Or she was even over. 21 total punts, 10 by Torrey Taylor. Truly living up to the All-American status that he is preseason. Almost 1,000 yards of punts in that game, James. Over 950 yards, as you chuckle.
These are stats I'm not used to hearing.
Yeah, as a quarterback, that's got a really dagger to the heart. So let's talk about what Kirk Ferentz said after the game when he said there's a lot more noise going on outside the room than there is in the locker room. You know what that's like, good or bad, wearing number 16, being a quarterback at Iowa, coming off the field. It's great to get the accolades, but there are times it's not so great. Talk about what is going on in that locker room or in the meeting rooms.
Yeah, no, I think that's such a great comment, and it's so true. You know, in the locker room, it's either you won or you lost. And whether that's practice in a 2-minute drill, or that's some third down scenario, or it's the opening game of the year, or it's against Michigan in 6 weeks. Like, at the end of the day, did you win, did you lose, and what phases got you to do that? Now, obviously, this game was very defensive and special teams based, which in general we're very strong at, especially this year. So, no, I find it weird being on the outside now with how noisy it can be, and you guys make me aware of how noisy it really can be. I'm not even attuned to all that noise. But inside, there's probably tons of talk of things that could have gone better, should have gone better, missed assignments, blown opportunities. But that's to the extent of the noise. Not what you'd be seeing on Twitter right now.
Let's talk about some of that stuff. Other key elements that affected Spencer's performance, besides Spencer affecting his performance.
Yeah, I think it was clearly the whole unit. I mean, if you're going to get mad at whoever, I mean, the offensive unit was not great. It's not like we ran the ball for 200 yards.
Right.
What did we run the ball for, 60 yards?
Yep.
I mean, I mean, that's indicative of a young O-line that's beat up. Obviously, we have the injuries on the outside. And people just didn't play good, and that happens. But also, that was probably a lot better team than anybody's giving us credit for playing. If that would have said North Dakota State, everybody would have been like, well, it was a tough game, but at least we won. South Dakota State's ranked 2 or 3 in the FCS.
We covered that last week. Sean Bach from 24/7
They're going to play North Dakota
Yeah.
State tough. Like, that was probably a much better team, especially on a one-game basis.
Yeah.
If they had to play a whole Big Ten schedule, that's different. But on a one-game basis, those teams can take pretty good shots at you, and they certainly did.
Right.
But it was the whole unit. It was not just Petras. And whether you watch Pass Pro, even on the interception, he kind of got hit in the legs as he let go of that ball.
Right.
I mean, it's weird when people fall at your legs, and that caused him to throw it 2 foot behind the guy. Not that that's the excuse, but that's what happened.
You said something to me, and I didn't want to interrupt your train of thought, but when Sean Bach and I talked about that last week, and David Eickholt, of course, joins us from 27 Sports this week, but Sean last week from 27 Sports, and we sat here for a full segment and talked about how good South Dakota State was and is.
Yep.
That's, Iowa is their Super Bowl. You had a Solon kid, Bach, last name, as Sean said, no relation to him. But, he had a superhuman game on defense. But you said something to me a couple of weeks ago, and you said it not to be mean, but just stating facts. Offensive linemen, when they're young, they're young.
Yeah.
And you had a young Brandon Sheriff.
Yeah.
You had some young, great NFL offensive linemen around you, and you got your lumps because of those guys.
And that's at every position, but it really, at O-line, there's the difference between a high school D-tackle and a Big Ten or an all FCS type D-tackle even. And we're going to learn that. That's going to pay dividends in the future, but we're still learning that, especially when we're already young and then we're a little banged up. Yeah,
there's so much to get to. Let's you and I take a quick pause here with this first segment, and we'll come back then and talk about getting ready for the Iowa State game after their 42-10 win over Southeast Missouri State. Decker's taking the place of Brock Purdy. Breece Hall is no longer in the backfield, but Jirel Brock is, and I've got a little experience talking to my guys. He's from down in your area, Southeast Iowa. You're from Keokuk, but Jirel's from Quincy, so our buddy, mutual friend Chris Dewar has given me the inside scoop on Jirel for the past couple of years, and he had a nice game last week on the running game. So we've got a lot more to dig into, James. So thanks for joining us in the studio today. He is James Vandenberg, former Hawkeye quarterback. I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeyed. We'll be back with more in just a few moments.
Hi, I'm Joel from Tice Chevrolet. We've lived through some very interesting times the last few months. Ensuring everyone's safety is more important than ever. That is why we're participating in the Chevy Clean program. At your request, we will pick up your vehicle, service it, and return it after we've cleaned it using the current CDC guidelines. This is just another way to work towards exceeding your expectations. So give us a call and let us show you what it means to be part of the Tice Automotive family.
To make the Mershman Seeds delivery experience even better this year, Mershman Seeds is offering you a brand new Apple app called Mershman Delivers. It will give you the estimated time of delivery down to the second and updates you as our truck makes its way to your dealership. Mershman Delivers will provide you the answer to the number one question we get when it comes to delivery. When exactly will the Mershman truck be here? Available on the Apple App Store. Download Mershman Delivers today.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. There he is, James Vandenberg, former Hawkeye quarterback. So, James, right back to it. Thanks for joining us in the studio again today, but let's talk about Iowa State. You know what it's like, and not that I want to bring up bad past memories, but you have good past memories too. You've got games where, the 1AA or FCS, whatever you want to call them, you were a redshirt freshman when the double block kick against Northern Iowa.
Yep.
So you know what it's like to escape a 1AA or FCS victory, but you also know what it's like to win an Iowa State game, and you lost a couple at home and on the road. Yep. This one's at home. I hear a lot more nerves this year than in recent years. Iowa, after a 6-game win streak against Iowa State. Let's talk about this week as QB1, as you're preparing, as Spencer Petras is with Brian Ferentz and Kirk Ferentz in the offensive meeting rooms. What did you go through? What do you think? Relate that to what Spencer and the team is going through.
Yeah, this is a big week. I mean, this is something that gets circled on everybody's calendar every year. And I think it's interesting on the outside right now. Last year, that game was Iowa State's year, BCS Bowl,
Yep.
Brock Purdy, Iowa won't hang, and we went up there and kind of took care of business. Going into this year, you heard a little bit of the opposite. There's expectations here, and all of a sudden, no Brock Purdy, and everybody assumes Iowa State's completely fallen off a cliff. I think Coach Campbell's done a pretty good job there where they're probably not just going to fall off a cliff. So I think the whole dynamic is great for the rivalry. As boring as it is, it's another scheme and another defense, and that's how they'll be preparing on offense. Like we cited in the segment before, there's going to be a lot to improve on from last week. There's a lot of miscues. There's going to be a lot of missed blocks, missed throws, missed routes, missed hots, so on and so forth. So they're going to build right off that, but it's going to be against a different scheme. And it's going to be a scheme we are pretty familiar with. Iowa State's not going to come in here and try doing something completely different. So, it's week 2. This is what it's like playing BCS level college football. It's constant, and that'll be this week.
Okay, I have to ask you the $1 million question. I know everybody's thinking, Dave, what took you a segment and a half to get here, but get ready. Inhale, exhale, as James says, We're going to talk about injuries, who's available this week with David Eickholt in the next segment, our Hawkeye Insider from 24/7 Sports. We know Reganey's going to be out for sure. Yep. But there are other injuries David's going to update us on. He was we record this, as always, on Tuesday afternoon, this time on September 6th. And David was at Media Day today, or availability with Coach Ferentz and the players, so he'll have that report. So I want to ask you directly. All the yelling for Petras. And again, you know what that's like. When Stanzi was injured, you played. They always say you never want to be the man to replace the man. Well, you were that man. You had a nice outing against Ohio State. Game shoulda, coulda, woulda. Drop pass here, drop pass there. But you know what it's like to get blame heaped on you, but then again get too much praise, as we discussed. Is there validity? Do you think Captain Kirk has a quick hook at halftime, for instance, this week? Is that in Spencer's mind? Do you think he's been talked to, or that's something that they never go to? They don't even want to put it in the guy's head. Get us into that process.
Yeah, I don't think that's probably been brought up. I go back to this, okay? You're not at practice. I'm not at practice. David Eickholt's only at a couple practices. I mean, we don't really know every play, every scenario, everything the coaches have seen, okay? And what I know is my time there, they were pretty good at evaluating talent. And I would assume they still are. So if he's the guy out there, it's because he should be the guy out there.
Now, I want to highlight that right there. And viewers, again, when James says this, I'm not knocking anybody else's opinions or thoughts, but he just said it right there. Having gone through the meeting room, and I love the fact that you don't sound like, well, I know what I'm talking about, but you do, because you lived it. Alex Padilla, you said to me even last year, Dave, there's a reason he's not playing.
Yep.
There's a reason Joey Labus isn't playing. Yep. There's a reason for these things. There are reasons for these things.
Yep.
And as you're saying, they must feel that Spencer's the best option. Whether people like it, agree with it or not, that's reality.
Yep, exactly. I put any quarterback in there and we go run the ball for 56 yards or whatever it was, it's not going to be a great day for a quarterback. It's just not. I mean, I don't know what the numbers would say, but I can almost guarantee if we look it up, those aren't good games for Hawkeye quarterbacks.
All right, it's time. Yeah. It's time. You were concerned with my earlier warning. Now it's the warning, feet to the fire. I need a prediction, as we do each week. You, again, like me, are in agreement that Hawks are going to be 8-4 or better this year. Vegas had them at 7.5 over-under, and we took the over. This week, going in, as we talked Tuesday, the Hawks are favored by 3.5. I know you're not a big point spread guy or whatever, but, you know, Stacy talked about this in the earlier segment. 41.5 or 41.5, by the way, is the over-under. But again, under. So there it is right there, under, James just said. So what, do you like the Hawks? I figured you liked the Hawks this week, but how do you like them and by how much, or how do you see this game playing?
Yeah, I don't know about how much. I definitely like the Hawks. This rivalry come down in the last handful of years is turnovers versus no turnovers. Last year, that was completely apparent. Our defense is going to force a turnover, I would assume, and our offense is going to play smart. It's not probably, I mean, I hope it's not a shootout, because I don't like playing that kind of game against Iowa State.
Right.
I was in an overtime game that we lost in one of those. Yeah. But no, I really like the setup of this, because now all of a sudden everybody assumes we really stink, and now everybody assumes Deckers is going to be better than Purdy. And we'll see which ones of those true. Not saying he won't, or
right.
I mean, but I like that setup coming into this game. All of our expectations are now gone.
So you're going to go 24-10 with me, 17-10? Where do you see the game?
It's going to be, I mean,
right
21-17.
21-17.
Something like that, 17-14, 7. I mean, who knows? With safeties, we get weird numbers.
Could be a 19-13
We get weird numbers. And I want to say one thing before we get off, though. David Eickholt, who I just met in person, I don't follow Twitter, but he did pop up on my Twitter. And I don't know why he popped up on my Twitter, because I don't follow anything Hawkeye football on my Twitter, except his segment on Jack Campbell. I thought that was awesome. I thought that personified exactly what it should personify at Iowa. People don't want to hear that. But that's what it should be all about, quite frankly. It's like these kids are still 18, 19, 20 years old.
Absolutely.
Like, I mean, I thought that was awesome. And it randomly popped up on Twitter, and I saw it.
Well,
and
that's...
I get to meet the man, the myth, the legend.
There you go. That's why he's my buddy and why he's on this show. And he does such a great job. But we highlight his work and Sean's work all the time, 24/7, as you're alluding to and saying. Best work in the industry. Those guys nail it every week for us, and that's why we love having them on. So, James, great to meet you in person. We've got to do this again in studio.
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Truly my pleasure. He is James Vandenberg, former Hawkeye quarterback. I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. We will close out the show with the aforementioned David Eickholt, Hawkeye Insider from 24/7. Back with more in a few moments.
Hi, I'm Joel from Tice Automotive Family. We are living through some of the most interesting and challenging times many of us have ever seen. Knowing who you can rely on is more important than ever. Many of us turn to our families to get us through, and the same holds true here. From our fair, upfront pricing to exceptional service after the sale, we truly want to exceed your expectations. So give us a call or stop by and let us show you what it means to be part of the Tice Automotive family.
When you're a farmer, there's a lot of things you can't control. But there is a way to give your soybeans an early advantage. Mershman Seeds soybean seed treatment featuring Turpidity ST. An independent analysis has proven faster and more even emergence every time. Just look at the Mershman difference. Give your crop the boost it needs for a uniform stand. For the best yields, grow with us. Mershman Seeds.
Welcome back to Hawkeye with me, Dave O'Hara. There he is. It's been a while, my friend.
Good to see
How
you,
you
man.
doing? Good to see
Good,
you.
yeah,
David
good to see
Eickholt, Hawkeye Insider 24/7 Sports. Hey, really neat what James Vandenberg talked about. And he's not a social media guy, but truly when I have you and Sean Bach on, and Sean was on last week, love having 24/7 Sports on. Obviously, that's why. Not just to mention the great piece that James Vandenberg talked about with David on Jack Campbell and the right things is what's great that James had mentioned. But you and Sean do podcasts throughout, all the great features both of you do. If you haven't checked out 24/7 Sports via social media or HawkeyeInsider.com, you're really doing yourself a disservice. So please check out their great work. And I wanted to get that said before we get into brass tacks here, David. Thanks again for as always, for joining us, and great seeing you in studio. But let's get to it. I'm going to get out of your way, let you talk about, today is Tuesday, September 6th. We record every Tuesday afternoon. Media availability again with Kirk Ferentz, head coach, but also with the players. Obviously, the training room is a mass unit at University of Iowa right now. So as you chuckle, try to succinctly report what happened today and what kind of updates you have for us.
Yeah, at this point, it's almost easier to discuss who's actually healthy versus who's injured, right? But you look at Justin Jacobs, who did leave the first half last week, and he is going to be out, according to Kirk Ferentz. Expect Logan Klemp, in-state native, who hasn't really started a lot of games, so has been a core special teamer. I expect him to really take a lot of control there. But Cooper DeJean and that cash, that 4.25, might be really prevalent this week as well. Nico Reganey is gaining ground, but he's out. Kirk also mentioned that he might be out next week against Nevada, so that's going to be something to monitor. Deontay Vines is still pretty far out. And Keegan Johnson, there's been a lot of buzz on social media about him. He is out this week, and when asked about his potential return, Kirk just said he wishes he was smart enough to know when that's going to be, which is not really encouraging for an Iowa offense that is, at this point, Dave, desperate for any sort of playmakers.
From the initial lower leg, it is a foot, correct?
It's a hamstring.
All right, hammy. Okay, so it is lower leg
Yep.
or lower body injury. Okay, hammy.
And those things linger, too.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that makes it really tough to get him back and properly rehabbed and such.
Explosive, off the ball.
Yeah.
That's tough with a bad hammy. So get him well for the Big Ten season. Get Nico Reganey well. Any buzz with the players you talked to today? Of course, we just talked to James Vandenberg about this. A lot of noise out there on social media and the world in general, not really so much in the meeting rooms or at Iowa. How did they handle that today?
I think they've done a really good job of shutting it down, especially Spencer Petras. I mean, you talk about a guy that's probably taken as much criticism from everybody, fan base, national media-wise, as anybody possibly can who's ever sued up for Iowa, I would think. But I think they've really done a good job of putting the week behind them. Spencer really declined to answer any questions about last week, which I think is fair to some degree because at this point, Dave, they have to just move forward. I believe they're dead last in yards per play in Power 5, the third worst offense in the FBS. I mean, there's a lot to do. But Gavin Williams, I meant to mention, is expected to be back, which is huge for the running game.
And I was going to ask you, so thank you for covering that. So we'll have the Williamses in the backfield. Good.
Very likely.
Likely.
He didn't say he's guaranteed to play, but he's, quote, optimistic about it.
And again, remember, viewers, we record this on Tuesday afternoon, September 6th, so a lot can change between now and game time. So, David, let's get to game time in the next minute and a half or so we have with. I'm going to let you close out on this. Iowa State comes to town. Where do you see this Hawkeye team and the Iowa State team? They won 42-10 last week at home in Ames. Jack Trice against Southeast Missouri State, 42-10. Of course, we know the Hawks, 2 safeties and a field goal, 7-3 victory over South Dakota State. Take us there.
Yeah, it's interesting. I really don't know how much you can take away from week one. I mean, with all due respect to Iowa State, they played a team that had 43 freshmen and 50 newcomers on it. They're essentially playing a JV team.
Yeah.
So, but Iowa, you could argue, is playing a division down, as good as South Dakota State is. And I think back to 2009, Dave, like you mentioned earlier, the 2 blocked field goals, and Iowa goes out there and trounces Iowa State. The week 1 to week 2 improvement, if there's any week-by-week improvements that can be made in the college football season, it's week 1 to week 2.
Yeah.
So I expect massive ground to be gained. I'm not picking Iowa State. I can't pick Iowa State until they prove that they can beat the University of Iowa. Matt Campbell has not done that. And they haven't played in Kinnick Stadium since 2018. It's going to be a sold-out crowd. And despite all the boo birds that were out last week, they're going to put that energy into really booing Iowa State and putting together a really hostile environment. And remember, Hunter Deckers has not been tested yet as the starting quarterback.
That's the key. I was going to mention when James Vandenberg and I talked about him at the end of the last segment. The lefty coming in, he's had some good performances, but not really been tested. So, and that 09 game or against Northern Iowa 08 game, that season turned out pretty well for the Hawks.
Yeah, not too shabby.
Not too shabby. So, all that being said, David, looking for a Hawkeye victory, you think it's going to be low scoring? Where are you at?
I believe I had 20-16, but it's not going to surprise me if at this point it's 10-7. I mean, I don't know how Iowa State scores. By the way, Matt Campbell has not scored a touchdown in Kinnick Stadium yet with one of his teams.
Great note right there, by the way.
go.
Vandenberg and I are on record right around you. We're 21-17. You're 2016. So, David, great seeing you again.
Yep,
Thanks
good
for
seeing
joining
you.
us. You
Always.
bet. You always as well with you. So, for David Eickholt and James Vandenberg and Craig and Stacy Schroeder, and you, the viewers, and my good buddy Michael Merrick getting us on the air, and his friend AJ helping out today. And again, to you, the viewers, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to stay tuned for just a moment after the show for the rolling credits to give our advertisers and sponsors the credit and attention they so richly deserve. So, for all the aforementioned folks, I'm Dave O'Hara with Hawkeye. That's all from me. Thanks to all of you.